Welcome to It's UATL, your unscripted weekly dose of Black culture straight from the heart of Atlanta. I'm Nedra Roan, and I'm here with Naja Parker. Brooke Howard will join us for our interview in just a bit. But first, our colleagues at the AJC, Chaya Tong and Justin Price, recently had an investigative piece come out called The South Leads in Hysterectomies, especially for Black women. Here's why. As you can probably tell from that title, Black women in the South face the highest rates of hysterectomies in the country. And soon we'll be joined by the key subject of the piece, Tanika Gray Valbrun. So Naja, what did you know about hysterectomies or fibroids before reading this piece?
I'm going to go with nothing.
Okay.
You know,
That's fair.
I had heard of the term, but I don't think I knew exactly what it meant. I think the first time I ever heard the word hysterectomy was in high school. I was talking to a friend and she told me that her mother had a hysterectomy, but I had no idea what she was talking about. I just kind of moved on with the conversation and I was like, well, get well soon.
Right.
I didn't know what it entailed, but I hope she feels better soon. And, you know, she made it sound like it wasn't a very serious surgery because she didn't have any worry in her voice, but it kind of stayed right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
I had a colleague in the early 2000s. And she had decided to have a hysterectomy. And that was my first experience of, I was like, what does that entail exactly? And what does it mean? And why did you decide to do it? And so she explained all of that to me. And that was really my first deep understanding of what that was. I felt like I had heard, the word for sure. And I had heard fibroids, but that was the first time I knew someone that was actually going through that procedure, at least someone who told me that they were going through that procedure, and really understanding the details behind why someone would make that choice, why some people felt like they had no other choice. Mm-hmm.
And then like women's health in general, where do you feel like you learned about your own body?
That's a good question too. I mean, I have to think back. I felt like some of it came from my mom. We certainly weren't talking about fibroids and hysterectomies. It was kind of the basic, this is how your body works. These are the things that you're experiencing. When you get your cycle, there was the awkward conversation, you're a woman now. And I was like, okay,
I didn't quite get that.
You didn't get, okay, wow. But yeah, I do. I feel like it's something that people are embarrassed maybe to talk about.
It's really hard to pinpoint a single conversation or a single moment where I learned about women's health. I feel like the knowledge has just come piece by piece over time.
Is it mostly friends or?
Probably mostly friends. My period was a whole surprise to me when I got my first cycle. I didn't know what was going on because me and my mom had not yet had the talk. And I thought that I had done something wrong. Right. I felt very guilty about what I didn't even know. And my mother discovered some undies. And she said, hey, baby girl, we need to talk about what's going on. And then I started to learn. And then, like you said, with friends and being in college and feeling like I had some safe spaces to share what was going on with my body, I started to learn a little bit more. Yeah.
So, I mean, it seems like there really hasn't been a space for, people to share their stories about these things. But Tanika Gray Valbrun really does have an amazing story. She is a journalist and educator, and after experiencing her own struggles with uterine fibroids, she founded the White Dress Project. That's an Atlanta-based organization designed to support others who are facing similar challenges. So thank you, Tanika, for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can you start just by telling us a little bit about your experience with fibroids and maybe even include an explanation of what fibroids are for anyone who doesn't know?
Yeah, absolutely. So fibroids are benign tumors that can grow in and around your uterus, and they can often impact fertility. They can cause heavy bleeding, pain, bloating. They can impact other organs. They can even impact your mental health, which is something that I don't think we talk about often enough. And a lot of times, women don't recognize that they have fibroids because we have especially in our culture, normalized periods, right? So Grandma kind of just told you how to protect yourself, how to get blood out of sheets and clothing, etc. But we've really never investigated or addressed why we're bleeding this way. So that's what fibroids are. I started feeling like I started having those symptoms very, very early on. So I would say early teens. And I was always pretty skinny, but I always had a protruding belly. So imagine going through high school and college and, everybody being like, Tanika, are you that girl? Are you, what's going on?
The rumor wheel.
Honey. And I'm like, I ain't even having sex.
Wow.
So imagine that as a young woman. So fast forward, I'm just living life and understanding that I always have to have an extra bag of clothes with me. I always have to have the ibuprofen with me just so that I can ward off pain. And so I literally managed my life around fibroids. Even though I had managed all my life with these heavy periods, I never thought it was abnormal. And I also never thought that it was fibroids because to me, that was the thing that mommy got. That was the thing that...
For older people.
That grandma got.
Right.
I'm young and vibrant.
Yeah.
I officially got diagnosed with fibroids at around 25. And it was the first time I had seen a gynecologist.
So this is years long of just normalizing heavy bleeding. Like, this is my life and I'm dealing with it in these ways.
Yes.
But not addressing the root.
Absolutely. I categorized it as this is being a woman. This is what being a woman is about. And I think so many women do that.
I feel like I can understand your family doing that because, they had their own experiences with these things. But, for friends even, did you talk about this to friends, in college or whatever? And what did they share with you, or did they share anything with you? Did anyone say, hey, that sounds a little strange?
No. Because I think within my friend group, we were probably all experiencing pretty much the same thing. One of my best friends used to at least miss 5 days from school every month. And it would just be the thing. So I think that's a part of the problem that, especially in the Black community, I think because so many of us experience fibroids and heavy bleeding, and we have these conversations with our elders, and because they're only speaking from their, lens of what they've experienced, it's kind of gone down generation to generation that this is just normal, honey, and just deal with it.
Yeah. Early in this journey, what was your experience with medical providers when you talked to them and you said, oh, I'm having these symptoms? And I asked because I remember, being myself a teenager, and I used to get these debilitating cramps, and I would just be curled up, for 24 hours in a corner at night usually, or sometimes missing school or whatever the case may be. And it was always, well, you just need to, eat more vegetables or drink some milk. And I'm like, what? None of that works. Or it was like, be active. I was a 3-season athlete. So I'm like, what else can I do?
Yeah.
So what was the response that you got from medical providers, early in this experience?
Yeah. So my freshman year, I was moving into the dorms and I fainted. And my mother was like, what's happening? Because I'm about to leave my daughter here. And you're like, what's happening? So it was an emergency situation for us. And I went to the doctor and found out I was anemic. And that was my first blood transfusion. And during that time, obviously it's like, what is anemia? Why am I anemic? And I'm explaining about my periods and how heavy they are. And the doctor said to me, well, you probably need to have a DNC. For those of you who may not know, a DNC is the surgical removal of matter from your uterus. And it's usually performed after you have a miscarriage or after an abortion.
As a quick disclaimer, a DNC is used to investigate and diagnose heavy bleeding and or fibroids, but it does not remove the fibroids. There's another surgical procedure to remove them, and that's called a myomectomy.
So that was already traumatic because it was unnecessary, right? And obviously it did not solve the problem because a DNC doesn't take care of fibroids, right?
I'm sorry.
Right.
Why
How did the conversation go to that? And that's the first thing.
Right. Why was that the answer if that doesn't address the issue?
$1,000 question. Why was that?
So no one ever said anything else before that?
No.
How does the conversation even how is that even offered as a suggestion?
Yeah, because I think we're in the business in our healthcare system, and this is just my opinion, obviously, but in the business of just continuous treatment, right? No one's really looking to prevention. No one's really looking to getting things solved. And then, to put this in context, I'm also a college student. I'm outside. On a step team.
Maybe not on top of your medical care at that point.
On top of my medical care, as I should be. Nothing, in terms of like, okay, let's get on a treatment plan, because it was just immediately, let's get you back to normal levels. And then I didn't follow up. They didn't follow up.
We know also from reading the story that hysterectomies is a solution that medical professionals offer. But I also learned that's not the only solution. Why do you think doctors and medical professionals start there?
So I believe that medical professions often start there because of what they've seen, right? So for the first time, I got diagnosed with fibroids and then kind of went on living my life. And then I got married. My husband and I started thinking about children. And we went to a doctor at a hospital here in Atlanta and shared with him, our desire to have children. I've always wanted to be a mother, always, much more than I even wanted to ever get married. I just wasn't the girl who planned my wedding, but I always planned my baby shower. It was wild. So we went to this doctor here in Atlanta, and he said to me, Tanika, forget about it. You won't be a mother the traditional way. I just need you to have a hysterectomy because your uterus is way too compromised. So just you and your husband, just go ahead and save your money and get a surrogate. And I walked out of the doctor's office. My husband was with me, walked into the parking garage and literally fell down on the floor and started crying. And I cried because not only was somebody kind of doing away with my dream or what I knew that my life was going to be. So I had to mourn that. But I also had to mourn what I feel like my mother told me. And she told me, make sure that I go to school, get a good job, get married, and have children. So when you feel like you've done all of that, you've done everything mommy told me to do, and then somebody tells you that wasn't good enough, there's a level of grief in there that I can't even explain. So it was devastating for me at that time to be told that hysterectomy was going to be my only option. And mind you, this is 6 months after I'd gotten married. So now to have a conversation with my husband that hey, this is what the doctor said, was devastating as well.
I also want to pause and talk about the doctor's delivery.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was this lack of compassion that you were feeling when he was delivering the news, but I'm going to need you to get a hysterectomy is off-putting.
It's not the right way to say that.
Absolutely. And I think we don't talk about how, and this is not like a physician bashing session, but how off-putting many physicians can be. And when I talk to physicians about that, why is that there not that level of care for patients when you're delivering? A lot of them transparently say that, they deal with it so much. So it's not even them trying to be insensitive, but it literally is the solution. Here's what you got to do. So to answer your question, why hysterectomy is the first thing they go to, because of what they know, right? So I later found out that physician was visiting from Augusta. So he hadn't had the breath. So that explains a little bit more, right? He hadn't had the breadth of patient population, I'll say, a patient demographics, maybe of someone like me, right? So he had just never seen it. So to him, this is all you can do. So whether it was, we have all agreed that it's inappropriate, but he was also just speaking from his level of expertise. Yeah. I also think physicians go to hysterectomy because it is the easier surgery. Hysterectomies are clamp at the top, clamp at the bottom to put it in lay terms, and you can remove the organ, right? So when you think of myomectomy, which is the surgical removal of fibroids, there are multiple slits that have to be made on the uterus and then resect the fibroid. So it's a much more, I think some would argue, difficult surgery.
It's just so unethical from hearing it that way that it goes more so towards the convenience of the doctor rather than the convenience of the patient.
That's why I preach through my organization that I am the CEO of my body and that we all have to be advocates for ourselves. Because no matter how much your doctor wants your best outcome and loves you and Tanika, I'm happy to see you today in the office, all the things, you are the only one who can best serve as your own best advocate. So that's why I go to the doctor with a pen and a paper, and I go in with this kind of toe-to-toe attitude, right? So I'm not a clinician. I didn't go to 4 years of medical school. I didn't go to 4 years of residency, fellowship, all the things. However, I've been with my body, right? So I go into the doctor's office as if I'm a partner, because I am. And we're partnering in my healthcare, and we're partnering in what I want my outcome to be. And I often say that finding a good doctor is like dating, right? If you're not on what I'm on, if you don't want the same outcomes, if we're not trying to get the penthouse together,
it's not a match.
You're just not my guy. You're just not my guy. So if we are intended to find the best health outcome, which ultimately I want as well, then we should be able to come to some balance and some agreement.
Yeah, or at least have a conversation about it.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Tanika, I wonder, when you were being told all of this about your health and having this conversation with this doctor, this very, brusque conversation, did you know at the time the history of Black women and hysterectomies, or the ways in which, we have experienced these procedures, sometimes unbeknownst to us or anything like that? Was that on your radar at all at the time?
No, absolutely not. The only context that I had was that everyone in my family had the surgery. Grandma had the surgery, mommy had the surgery, auntie had the surgery, cousin had the surgery, and then you come to find out that the surgery is hysterectomy. And I think that is something that goes to many cultures, many generations of people just describing hysterectomy in this way. Even when I have conversations with elders in our family now, it's like, oh, I might have had fibroids too. And I'm like, yes, auntie, you probably did. But once again, advancements have allowed us to, have a name for it now. But yeah, that was my context. And I had no idea until I started doing this work, the impact on Black women as it relates to hysterectomies.
When we come back, Tanika tells us what steps she took after hearing her only option was a hysterectomy.
You mentioned earlier myomectomy.
Yes.
At what point did you learn about this procedure?
Yeah. So,
and remind us again what it is.
Yeah, so myomectomy is the surgical removal of fibroids, and it can be done with a C-section cut, meaning like from hip to hip, or it can be done laparoscopically. So I have had 3 of those. And what it means is laparoscopically, the physician goes in through your belly button, or they can make a small incision right above your vagina and go in that way and resect the fibroids. So make small slits in your uterus and resect the fibroids robotically. So I've had 2 of those surgeries, and I've had 1 with the hip-to-hip surgery. And
to remove a total of how many fibroids?
So my first myomectomy was hip-to-hip, so a C-section cut, and that was 27 fibroids removed.
Whoa.
Yeah. It makes me emotional thinking about just how much I've been through.
Yeah.
Just how much I've been through. And 5 years later, I had to have another surgery, and then had a miscarriage in October of 2022. My third myomectomy was after my miscarriage, and I was really about to give up in terms of trying to get to motherhood. And my doctor said to me, let's try one more time.
And I want to clarify too, this is not the same doctor that recommended the hysterectomy.
No.
Sounds like we got a second opinion.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I didn't even get to that. So let me back up a little bit. After that doctor that I had that crude experience with, I found another doctor here in Atlanta a month later, and she was like, yes, your uterus is compromised, but let's go ahead and try to figure out a myomectomy. And that is when the first time I learned about myomectomy. So it was a very difficult decision for me to make, to have that third surgery, but I knew I wanted to be a mother. Right. So
is that really what was keeping you? Because you said on the third time you were ready to.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I said I'm very spiritual, very, believe in God. And I said that I don't believe that God would have given me this desire if he wasn't going to fulfill it. And I feel like I held on for so long, like, by this time, I was holding on with a pinky. Like, I was like, I don't know how this is going to go down. And I remember saying to my husband, like, okay, if this round of IVF doesn't work, we're good with adoption. Mm-hmm. We're good with adoption. Okay, if adoption doesn't work, okay, we'll mortgage the house and try to do surrogacy, right? So I knew that I was going to be a mother. And I, through therapy, I learned that you get to happiness by letting go of what you thought was going to be and just letting what is.
Accepting what is.
Be. Yeah. And that's how you get to happiness.
My therapist says something similar. Yeah. She says, do your best to accept things as they are.
Yeah.
So that you can move forward.
Yeah. And so it's a very simple concept, right? But when I fully embraced that and fully understood, I went into my last round of IVF. And I was like, all right, well, if this ain't it, then, we're moving on to adoption. And but I never resigned to not being a mother. Like, I was like, oh, no, not me? No, I will be a mother. But I did have to grieve how I thought it was going to happen, right? And I think that it's important to recognize that it is a grieving process, right? I had to grieve when I went through the miscarriage and having a loss and then trying to continue on this journey when you are married already. By this time, we were married for like 11, 12 years. And when, careers, all right, fine, you're stable, you have resources. So it's like you feel like it's a perfect environment for a child. And it's not happening. It's devastating. And I remember, you're still at the age where friends are having kids and I'm the extrovert in my friend group, right? So I'm the friend that's going to all the
planning the showers,
planning the shower, planning the vacation, all the things. So I'm the one that's always going to show up. And that can be difficult as well. And I had to learn that you can absolutely be sad for yourself and be happy for someone else at the same time. And those two can live sometimes harmoniously, sometimes not. But you can have both of those emotions at the same time.
And that's that mental health aspect of it you say we don't talk about enough.
Right. But just the way all of this happened, my last IVF cycle, so I had my last myomectomy, August of 2023, almost a year after my miscarriage. And I went into it with that level of what's going to be is going to be. And anybody who's been through IVF knows that it's a series of shots all the time. And it's a very strenuous and stressful period that you go through. And I remember one moment that I just felt something come over me. And it was just like, everything is going to be done with ease.
That's when you know it's right.
That's when you know it's right. Mm-hmm. And from that moment, the IVF shots didn't hurt. All follow-up appointments went well. I got pregnant and I had the perfect pregnancy. I drove the day before I delivered. Wow. And I was the cutest pregnant person. Mm-hmm. I was so cute. He came on February 12th, 2025. He is 7 months old and the light of my life.
Wow.
Come on, little Aquarius.
Yes. And he loves the water. Loves the water.
I think just now did I really process all that you were going through.
Mm-hmm.
in this, like, going through just sort of getting your uterus ready to even, carry a child, but then also having to go through IVF to make the process happen. That's a lot.
It's a lot after a loss, right? So I remember I lost my baby at 9 weeks. And I remember my pregnancy with Josiah, I remember trying to get to 9 weeks and just being so fearful. Yeah. And even throughout the pregnancy, because I do this work, so I just know how things can go left easily. And I literally was holding my breath the entire time. And I feel like I couldn't take anything more. So that's probably why I had the perfect pregnancy, because it's like, you can't handle anything. So let me just make this perfect for you. And so it was great. Yeah.
I'm assuming these are the type of things you discuss with your organization.
Yes.
Can you tell us about it? The White Dress Project.
Yes.
And you're wearing white too.
And I'm wearing white. Yes. I always wear white when I'm representing my organization because I'm so proud. So the White Dress Project is my other baby. I started it 11 years ago. So the White Dress Project, we're a nonprofit organization. We're dedicated to raising awareness about uterine fibroids. But I'm a journalist at heart. So I am really interested in the storytelling part of it. I really want people to understand that their voice really matters and their story can be a data point for doctors, for our members of Congress, because without these stories, they don't know what's happening. I remember the first time I went to Capitol Hill, a member of Congress said to me, well, Tanika, does anybody die from fibroids? And I remember thinking, oh, well, sir, I didn't know death had to be the standard.
Right. It's almost like you're minimizing
absolutely.
this condition.
Absolutely.
Of course it would be a man.
Yeah. So I said that. I didn't recognize that needed to be the standard. But it just goes to show kind of the mindset of because we don't talk about it as much, then there's not this understanding of how impactful something like fibroids can be. 90% of Black women, 70% of white women, the numbers are sometimes unclear for Hispanic women and Asian women, but we know their numbers are high as well. So really anyone with a uterus can get fibroids, but it's to be noted that Black women get them disproportionately. Ours grow bigger. We're more symptomatic with them. So yeah, it's problematic. And through my organization, we definitely try to make sure that we're speaking about policies that can help fund reproductive work. I was in DC on Capitol Hill with Lupita Nyong'o and Mandy Moore. We were at...
Sound like some good company to me.
Yes. It was great. Lupita just shared that she had 30 fibroids removed. Also, Venus Williams has shared about her experience with physicians and them dismissing her. And I'm really loving, not that these stories are happening to Black women and just women in general, but that people, with a platform are speaking out about it, because it really does our community well when we're able to, see these people that are, deemed celebrities that people look up to, that we can use them and their stories can resonate with us. So yeah, I was on Capitol Hill with Lupita. Yes, and she was so great, and she so candidly shares that in 2014, when she won the Academy Award for Black Panther, she was diagnosed with fibroids and had to have 30 fibroids removed. So she also talks about that being on the highest high and also having this health condition that's so debilitating.
During your research with your organization and just collaborating with folks, what have you learned about why Black women experience fibroids more than other groups?
When you think about how fibroids impact Black women disproportionately and how Black women are treated overall in this country, our health is just not a priority. So when you have physicians who find your uterus disposable, as in my case, then there's really, why do we need to make the investment in figuring out anything more? I want to change that. So there is some research happening on why Black women may be disproportionately impacted. But when you think about the funding and the research, why aren't we getting the funding and the political discourse to figure this stuff out?
You talked earlier about the reasons why we may be seeing disproportionate hysterectomies in the Black community. But can you share why you think that is the case, particularly in the South? Because in the investigation that we did here at the AJC, it was shown that these rates are even higher in the South, higher for Black women overall, but really in the South, very high.
Yeah, I think the numbers are high in the South because obviously the large population of Black women. But traditionally in the South, we once again haven't gotten the care that we need to get. And with so many rural communities in the South as well. So a lot of it has to do with access to care, I think. With so many rural communities, lack of access to care, lack of funding, lack of even good gynecologists in the area. There's a lot of literature that's connected to Black physicians seeing Black patients and having better outcomes. And when you think about the number of Black physicians that there are, it's like 5% in the country. So there's a problem because if Black physicians seeing Black patients equal better outcomes, but we don't have enough Black physicians, then...
And they're not in rural areas.
And they're not in rural areas. They're in the A.
Right.
They're in Chicago.
Right.
They're, you know what I mean? So that's why I think the numbers are so high.
Yeah, and I purposely sought out a Black woman doctor for all my reproductive needs. Not even because I knew what you just told us, but because I felt like she would at least understand and not dismiss anything.
Yeah, there's a familiarity there.
And she went to Spelman.
Oh,
so there's that.
Awesome.
What would you say to women who are experiencing fibroids or similar symptoms or excessive bleeding and they're just too embarrassed or uncomfortable to talk about it?
Yeah, don't be embarrassed. I will shout this from the mountaintop. And I'm not telling anyone to go and blast this on social media like I did. And I remember my mother being like, oh, baby, don't tell everybody you had 27 fibroids. And I remember thinking like, Mommy, I didn't put them in my body.
Right.
But once again, from her protective nature, she just didn't want anyone to judge me, didn't want anyone to feel like somehow, you know, her daughter is like unprofessional. And I think we have also categorized talking about issues below the belt as unprofessional or, you know, you're not classy, you're not sophisticated if you do so.
When we talk about health outcomes, particularly for Black people or Black women, it's always, it's your fault. You're doing something wrong.
Exactly.
You're not eating right. You're not exercising. You're not doing that.
Exactly.
And it's like, so I think that might impact people too. From
Exactly. You know, it's a part of my undercurrent with my organization that I didn't want to just name it, you know, another fibroid organization or another health something. I wanted to use a name that people could use as a conversation starter, right? So you're either like, oh, are we talking about wedding dresses? And I'm like, no, that's not it. That's not it. You know, so it has opened the doors for me to have conversations in many different areas. And it's far more than the white dress, right? This is for me, white clothing, white sheets, white towels, you know, anything white in my car, anything light colored in my house.
I mean, that was part of the instruction, though, is don't wear white pants when you're... I remember that. I don't know if y'all...
Oh, yeah. Grandma always said that.
But yeah, it was like, don't wear anything
and
white.
They would blame you if
you
did.
If you did,
I don't even have a lot of white in my closet today.
Exactly.
I don't want to even take no chances.
Exactly. And that's how we're conditioned and how we're trained. And every time I put on a white dress, it's not always that I feel comfortable, but I know that I am advocating for someone who may not feel comfortable. And I want to stand in the gap for them. You know, the phrase health is wealth, you know, is thrown around, but it legitimately is. You know, when you're healthy, you have the riches of everything, I believe. And I really want women to understand that conversations with our doctor don't always have to be so clinical and so traumatic. I think if we have a regular cadence with our doctor and build relationship, then we're in a better situation. So if you are having these symptoms, please see somebody. Please come to our page at We Can Wear White on Instagram. Our organization has connected with all the great doctors in not only Atlanta, but across the country. There is community. There are people talking about this, and you don't have to share it on social media, but I want you to start with your mom. I want you to start with your aunt. I want you to start in your tribe. I want you to start in a group chat, because the moment we start talking about it, everybody says, yeah, girl, me too. And then we understand, that's why you didn't come out with me last Friday.
Yeah.
Not because you had a headache, because you were in a fetal position on the bathroom floor. And once we begin to open our hearts that way and open the conversation that way, I think we're off to a better start. So it's our time. So speak up.
Well, we could talk to you for hours, but we don't have that much time. But we so appreciate you sharing your story with us. I've learned a lot.
Same. Thank you.
Yeah. And we may have to have you back on next time because we want to continue to hear about the work that you're doing. So thank you for keeping us informed.
To learn more, you can find a link to the AJC investigative piece in the show notes, as well as a link to Tanika's foundation, the White Dress Project. We want to hear your take. What do you wish you knew about women's health that you didn't know?
Use your phone's voice recorder to send us a response on Instagram at It's UATL or email us at uatl@ajc.com. And don't forget to add your name, your age, and where you're from.
Thanks so much for listening to It's UATL.
UATL is a source for Black culture and community in Atlanta. It's powered by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and our supporters. If you're enjoying this podcast, join us as a UATL paid supporter at uatl.com.
And if you like the episode, please follow us and leave us a rating and a review. It really helps. See you next week.